Welcome to the Scenic Route with Victoria Stewart. Hey, I am going to be talking in these episodes about women who have taken kind of like the long way home, the scenic route, and have loved it. I'm Victoria Stewart, a financial empowerment coach and a recovering corporate engineer. Every week, I'm here with conversations about the pivots, detours, and unexpected turns that led somewhere better than that straight line career idea that we have all had ever could have. Solo episodes where we talk about money, identity, and what it actually takes to build a life that feels as good as it looks. Mixed with interviews with coaches and entrepreneurs who have inspired me and who'll tell you exactly what snapped them out of their habitual routines and what they found on the other side. If you're a high achieving woman who started to wonder if there's a different road available than that super highway we've all been on, you're in exactly the right place. Welcome to the Scenic Route. My guest today, Dianne Tremblay. Yay! Dianne is my friend that I actually met through Emily Fletcher and her Evidence of Magic mastermind. She's a #1 international best-selling author, entrepreneur, and strategic growth advisor. And we're going to be talking about pivots in life and what we inherit without even realizing it. So, Dianne and I have been friends since February of 2023. So she's part of my whole move out of working for the government. She's was like an amazing supporter of mine, of like just trusting my intuition and at least taking that first step in leaving. So we've been through a lot together.
So true, Vic.
So Dianne, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. So thank you, Victoria, for having me. And I feel very, very honored and excited to be here and
My
just
first guest.
Yeah. Spending time with you. It just, creates so much joy. So, introduction, grew up on an island on the East Coast in Canada and have 7 siblings. So my twin brother and I learned from an early age. Well, first when you're the babies, everybody else spoils you, but also you're along for the ride when there's 8 kids, and learned how to adapt and move in life where you help to accommodate other people and just get things done. And when you wanted something, you figured out a way how to do it, but you also I always never wanted to burden my mom with more things because she had a lot on her plate. And then moved into the world of health, worked with health tech, medical devices, AI, and healthcare. And it's been absolutely fascinating. But where that all stemmed from was when my mom was in, she was ran an X-ray department at a local hospital. So when we were young, grew up in the allopathic world. If you got sick, you took drugs. And when my mom was, when I was in grade 12, my mom got a rare kidney disease, and the doctors treated her with 4 different drugs. None of them helped her, and they sent her home. They said, "We don't know how long you'll live." And we didn't really know what to do with that. We were like, "Wait, what? How can this be right? What do you mean she may not live?"
That's
And one of
crazy.
my sisters met a naturopathic doctor in a grocery store lineup one day. And this woman was from the Philippines, had just moved to Prince Edward Island, and ran two departments in 2 different hospital systems, which was huge for a woman because at that time, excuse me,
Right.
women didn't run departments.
Yeah.
So she was very bright. She, through herbs and supplements, my mom's kidney disease went into remission within 3 months. And then
Wow.
skip ahead. This is a really long introduction. I apologize. But it kind of shows what led me to the passion of helping people on their healing journeys. Skip ahead 4 years. She went in for a general checkup. They found stage 4 cervical cancer. Doctors wanted her to do chemo, radiation, surgery, and a few other things. And we were still seeing the naturopath because whatever mom was taking, I was taking at home. She decided to do this surgery to have it removed. Didn't do anything else, and she drank this, we called it cancer soup, that the naturopath gave her. It was just full of enzymes, but she had to take it 3 times a day. She had to plug her nose to drink it. It was awful. But my mom lived another 28 years healthy
Wow.
and well. So that was my introduction into, okay, there's something about this naturopathic world, and I've been in it ever since. And it's just kind of driven me, because so many people, they take information from a doctor and they're like, oh, okay, this is it, this is my life, and without knowing or asking questions, they just accept it. And I believe in medicine, and I'm not against allopathic. I mean, if you're in a car crash or you're dying, we need that. But for everyday life, we want to treat from the root cause, and there's so many ways to do that. So today I have 3 daughters, all in their early 20s, and am living my life in a way that is, I'll say, magical. It's a lot of
Yeah.
fun, and I love what I do. So that's a little bit about me. Oh, I've also written a book, co-authored a book.
Hmm?
It's a #1
Yes.
international bestseller, and wrote a full book, which is coming out in June.
Beautiful. So if you go, does it feel like your whole life has kind of taken you off this kind of Western medicine allopathic route? Or did anything shift in your life that still feels like I was on this highway of what I was building for myself, for my family, for my life? And did anything ever feel like a major pivot that was like a light bulb went off and you're like, oh, I'm going to kind of change my life completely or start taking a different route?
Yeah, great question. So, I mean, when something big shifts happen in our life, they're not necessarily massive, right? It's little increments, little
Right.
things that go. But so that naturopathic world, I started buying and researching supplements probably around age 30, and
Yeah.
sending them to the lab and seeing what was in them. So that was my initial start into supplements and naturopathic, that part of the world, the nutraceuticals. And then there's another part, there's a deeper part, because we as a society and as people, we live in a way where we just follow the footsteps of who came before us, with a
Right.
lot of our life without even realizing it. And to give you an example of what I might mean, if you look at the FedEx truck, it has the arrow between the D and the E.
Mm-hmm.
I never knew that until I was 37 years old, and saw FedEx trucks my whole life. And I remember looking at that and I was like, oh my God, how many things am I missing in the world? Like, it was there in front of me. And then there's something really interesting that happened. And I know that I told this story in our Evidence of Magic, when we met in Costa Rica. But when I turned 40,
Mm-hmm.
I lived in a different province from my family, and did for a lot of my adult life. But I remember my husband, my ex-husband, had come home to stay with the girls. They were 3-2 and new, or 4-2 and almost 1. And I said, I just want to take myself out to lunch. Can you come home at lunch and look after the girls? And he did that. And I treated myself to lunch in this cute little area, and it had some really nice boutique shops. So after lunch, I was walking, window shopping down these shops, and there was a hat store. And I was like, I'm going to go and see what they have today, just for fun. And it was a cold day. It was November. And I found this really funky hat that I absolutely adored. It was like a cream wool, and it had all these crazy tassels at the top. I should have had this here to show you. Next time I'll do that.
Yes.
But everybody was just kind of like, what is that? And I was like, this hat is so fun. So I'm walking down the street to my car, and I was like, oh, I'm going to call my twin brother. I call him Duck. And I was like, I'm going to call Duck and see what he's doing today. So I wished him a happy birthday. And he said, what'd you do today? And I said, well, I just took myself to lunch and I bought myself a hat. And Victoria, I felt like it felt so special what I had done. Just, I
Mm-hmm.
think when you have 3 little kids,
Yeah.
just to get some time to yourself, right? But I felt like I spoiled myself. And then I said, what'd you do today? Like, what's your family doing with you? Because when you come from a family, our immediate family is 54 people.
So
So
many
when we get
people.
together, like, yeah, when we get together, mom would have everybody for every birthday, and there'd be like, it was just chaos and fun. So when I lived away, it was a whole new learning for me, really, because I didn't have that connection, and when I wasn't home. So he said, well, we're having dinner tonight, blah, blah, blah. And everybody was going to my mom's and the family. So that always made me feel a little bit sad. But I said, oh, and I said, did you buy yourself anything? Did you get any gifts yet? And he said, I bought myself an apartment building.
Apartment
And
building.
yeah,
Wow.
so I literally stopped in the street, and I was truly like, I never have, I'm not a jealous person ever. I was so happy for him. But in that instant, there was a part of me that woke up and I was like, how how did I get excited about a $40 hat, and my twin brother went and bought an apartment building? That was my, that was a big eye opener for me. And it took me, I still think about it, but it took me a long time to process what was happening. I was like, what's going on where I did this? Why did I think this was so big, yet my brother's doing this? And then I looked, and my brothers are all entrepreneurs and have very successful companies. And my sisters, none of us had, I had had a couple of small businesses, but yeah, we weren't at the level that they were financially. And that was a real wake up for me. So I remember driving home and saying, before I got there, realizing, okay, I'm going to be, and I haven't told my brothers this, I haven't told anyone this. Here it is. Here it is on your podcast. First one. I said to myself, I'm going to make more money than all of my brothers put together. And not that money is everything. It's not, but money gives us choices and joy, and to be able to give my daughters what they want. I want to build generational wealth and in the process of that. But when you want to do something big, there's always all kinds of hardships and challenges. So it's not easy, never has been. But it's a joy. And when you know your end goal, you'll get there eventually, and you don't sweat the small stuff. So yeah, the
Yeah.
birthday hat was my big eye opener, the first one.
Yeah. Birthday hat versus apartment building. You're like,
Yeah. Yeah, so that
what?
was a good one. And then yeah, other stepping stones. So was in a marriage for 20 years, and had this belief, because of the way we grew up, and what's kind of, I don't know, instilled in you, that you stay in the marriage. You stay in the marriage, and when you have kids, like, you want to have the mom and dad for them. You don't do anything. And um, with that marriage, and I would never want to say anything that was disrespectful to my daughter's father, and I chose to marry him. So anything that I say, it's not blame. It's just awakening and awareness. But I chose someone who didn't want to spend time with me, especially the second 10 years of our marriage, and like didn't go on a date. Didn't want to. He didn't want to take me on a date, and I was like, okay, how can I change this? So I was always modifying and changing. I was like, okay, he could come walk the dogs with me. That's not going to cost him any money. So I was like, let's go walk the dogs. And he'd walk 15 feet ahead of me. So eventually that clicked in, and I was like, huh, he doesn't want to spend time with me. And then there's little things all along the way. And then I remember in March of 2021, everyone was in bed one night, and I was sitting in the den, and I got to this realization. I was like, why am I trying so hard to make this marriage work when I'm the only one trying? And and then more questions came, and I was like, what am I teaching my daughters about love? Like, if they see
Right.
what is happening with their mom and dad, they're going to go out and look for that. And that was not what I wanted them to have. Just the lack of respect, and there was no adoration, there was no patience. Kindness had left, and again, there's absolutely no blame, because I chose him. And then I got to a point where I was like, okay, I'm going to do other things to fulfill me, and I'll focus fully on my daughters, and I'll still stay in the marriage. But then the next turning point was I got the first COVID vaccine, and had this really intense pain for 4 days, and don't usually take medications of any kind, but I was taking extra strength Advil and Tylenol around the clock, and it wasn't touching it. So called my doctor. Doctor said, you may have blood clots from the vaccine. Go to the ER. Go to the ER. They do tests for a day. Doctor calls me over, says, Dianne, you don't have any blood clots. I was like, great. What is this and how do we get rid of it? And he's like, we found a brain tumor. And like, I just stood there. There was no fear or anything. And I just laughed. And I was like, I don't have a brain tumor. I was like, I coach 6 a.m. boot camp and kickboxing classes to executive women. I go home, walk the dogs, take my girls to school, work full time, pick my girls up, teach 2 under 17 girls basketball teams, and then take my girls to all their activities. I was like, I can't have a brain tumor. That's not right. And he hands me a handful of papers, requisition forms. And he says, someone will be in touch. And he turns and walks away. And I stood there about 10 seconds. And then I just was like, okay, well, I guess we're done. And I start walking out, and I'm walking down this long corridor in the hospital. And I hear this voice all around me. And Simon says, are you going to pay attention now? And I instantly knew what it meant. And I just smiled. I said, yeah, I'm going to pay attention now. So, yeah, there's lots more to the story, but there's all kinds of little things. And if you're willing to be aware, if you're willing to be courageous enough to listen to those little things that happen, those shifts, and not ignore them. And I ignored them for a long time. But that brain tumor finally got my attention, and it's just been fascinating the last 5 years of what I've done and where I've come to in my life. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's like wild. I love hearing you tell that story because I've heard the brain tumor story before. But it's just like, what? Like, what are you talking
yeah,
about? Like, how is that even possible? Right. So
yeah,
I guess I'm curious, especially since you brought up like things have been shifting. And I'm laughing to myself because I was like, I'm going to sit outside because it's going to be quieter than in the house. And the neighbor is mowing the lawn. And I'm like, oh, this is hysterically funny.
So it's all perspective, Victoria, because here in Ottawa, there's still a little bit of snow on the ground. So I will enjoy the lawnmower.
Yeah, lawnmower in the background. Hopefully the AI like editing tool will take it right out for everybody who's listening on the recording. Sorry, everybody.
All good. All good.
Reality here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is life.
This is why I was like, I should ask my sister if I can use her office on the weekends to record the podcast, but I haven't asked her yet. Whoopsies. So I'm just curious, just because I know like the writing the book with the Start Over series happened very recently. And like there's so many things that have quickly started to change and shift through like I know that, and I'm curious to see what feels relevant here. You've been on many boards working to support other companies in what they're developing. I know it's because you believe in them, whether it's in the nutraceutical space, just leadership, supporting businesses space. But then you had this like desire to write a book also. Like, where did the desire to write the book come from maybe? And like, how did that, like taking that action did it start to shift things? I'm kind of a leading question, I feel like.
Yeah. No, that's a really good question because I never ever planned to write a book. Never had that desire to write a book. Like it wasn't on my checklist to do. So it's funny, a year ago, February, or 2 years ago, time really flies on me.
I think it was last February because I do remember like us talking about it. And I was like, how is this happening so fast?
So in November, the year before, November of 24, I went on a trip to Nepal, and it was I was doing Everest and class 4 whitewater rafting. Rapids and the river rafting. So for Everest, what happened is they had the worst torrential downpour of rain they had in I don't know how long, but everyone got pulled off the mountain. There were 9 deaths. So that was really hard. Um, so then I went whitewater rafting, and it was just a different kind of hard because we flew up to the northwest corner, came down the Carnally River for 14 days, slept on the beaches every night. Um, and something shifted inside me on that trip. I just kind of let myself open up and trust in a way again, or just be open to receive. And then in January was going through some difficult things, financially and work wise, because I tend to believe in something and give myself away for free, and was doing that for several companies, because companies that have, inventions and devices that could change the world, that were looking for funding, and that funding wasn't coming in, and there's companies I've worked with for free for 2.5 years. Not smart. But
Yeah.
so I'm learning. Anyway, at one point I said, okay, God, I give up. Tell me what to do. And Marco Robinson, who's the main author of the Start Over series, popped up on an Instagram ad one day, and he talked about, do you have a story to tell? Have you been through something really hard, and turned it around? If you're interested in learning more, comment book. And I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. And I commented book, and he called me, I think within a day. And I was like, you're Marco Robinson? And I did some research on him. So I had this conversation, did some research on him. Really authentic guy, has given away a house for free. So he was homeless at one point in his life, built himself up, has ADHD and on the spectrum for autism, and just really focused all of his energy into building himself a successful career. So I did a lot of research on him, was very legit. And I was like, well, this is easy. It's just a chapter. And I literally punched that chapter out in a weekend, because I knew my story and hadn't told many people about. So there was the brain tumor. There was, me walking in the house 3 days later and telling my husband that, I couldn't do this anymore. I was out, without looking
Yeah.
at any numbers or
Yeah.
doing any planning. 3 days after that, he had a heart attack. I stayed another 8 months. And then just before I was moving out, my mom passed away, and my mom was the biggest cheerleader in my life. We were so close. We talked every day. So it was a devastating, 8 months, and so many catastrophic turning points in that short amount of time for a lifespan. But yeah, so I just punched that story out real quick, and then I started taking some of Marco's courses, and he said, Dianne, you should write a full book, because there's much more to your
Yeah.
story. And I was like, yeah, I don't want to write a full book. And one day he was doing a webinar, and I said, oh, I'll just go on to support him.
Hmm.
So at the beginning of this webinar, he says, okay, give me your interest level in writing a book from 1 to 10. And people are writing 8, 9, 10. I was like, 1. And he's like, who wrote 1? He goes, Dianne. And I was like, I'm just here to support you. At the end of that webinar, something in me, I wrote 10, and I bought in, and the evolution that's happened within me from writing that book has been really profound, because it started out as something totally different,
Hmm.
and what it's called the inheritance, but it's all about, yeah, what is instilled in us when we're growing up through our parents, our grandparents, our ancestors. And so, like, I still have friends that say, well, my parents were teachers, so I'm going to be a teacher. Well, my parents are doctors, so I guess I'm going to be a medical doctor. And it's like, no, you need to really go within and see what it is, what your gifts are, and what you need to bring to this world. And so, yeah, it's been a real fascinating journey the last year.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's so funny because like your book is being released when? This summer,
And
right?
yeah, this summer. Yeah. Yeah, I
I'm
know.
like,
It doesn't seem real. Doesn't seem real. Yeah,
yeah,
I'm talking to designers, and it's like, oh, this is my book. Okay, right. So yeah, so it's really like, and I don't. This is, some people might listen to this, Victoria, and be like, what a jerk. Like, they'll put their whole heart and soul and life and everything into a book, right? And I'm just kind of like, I'm being guided to write it and to put it out there, and I'm detached from it, which is which makes me know it's something that I need to bring to the world. Yeah. So, and I know I've got lots of support around me, a lot of guidance. I'm a spiritual person. I grew up with a strong faith. So yeah, I just seeing what happens and seeing what feels right. But I used to force and push. Like I've been in sales my whole career. I walked out of my biology degree and went right into sales because I love people and I'm fascinated by the communication and just people's patterns and getting to know people and learn how to get them what they needed to maybe sell what I was believed in at the time, right? Um, but it's yeah, there's I don't know, there's a lot of things out there that we're not aware of if we aren't open to knowing and seeing what's available. And I think through Emily's course that we took too was where I really learned that, oh, I don't need to push, I don't need to force things, because when you sit back and let things happen, magic really does happen. And
Yeah.
even where people get really anxious or angry, and it's like, oh, interesting, so there's something within you that you need to learn, that's bringing this up, because we don't need to act or behave that way in life.
Yeah, it's funny that I've noticed every time I get really scared or mad or upset about something, I'm like, now at least it's not, I don't feel quite so judgmental of my own reaction. I'm like, oh, how curious. I wonder what's going on there.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I remember years ago I would work with people and you'd be like, oh, I really don't like that person, right? Like there's always someone. And I don't know when it was, but whether it was taking a course or speaking with someone, they're like, well, when there's something that bothers you in someone else, it's really something you don't like in yourself. And that was huge for me. I was like, oh, so yeah,
Yeah,
it's
there's
pretty
a
cool.
there's a few teachers that I still like respond like my back gets up and I'm like, "Oh, when I have time and space, that is something I need to investigate. That might be a time to go take their course because I'm like, this is interesting. What like they're lovely. I like their message. What is it about how they are portraying themselves that I am finding so scary or something?" And I'm like,
Yeah, yeah,
curious, right?
yeah. Exactly, exactly. Yeah, and then with some of the companies that I work with, so there's a few that are in funding in so AI remote patient monitoring, a watch that has 16 sensors and 19 biomarkers, but it helps elderly people stay in their homes longer because it'll
Wow.
capture all the data so
Hmm.
that they can be safe in their home. One is a medical device that's non-invasive, non-pharmaceutical. It sits on the ear 24/7 and it treats symptoms for chronic pain, anxiety, depression, and sleeplessness. So that will help
Yeah.
millions of people. Like after
Yes.
COVID, anxiety just went through the roof, and
Yeah.
mental health, we really became aware of it. And I've just joined a company as president of their health arm, and this one still sounds funny to me to say, but it's a gaming company. So when I met
Interesting.
this, yeah, when I met this founder, he approached me and I said, "So what do you do?" And he said, "Oh, I own a gaming company." And I was like, new topic. I don't like gaming. I grew up outside, played lots of sports, and I don't really. I'm someone who always was like, yeah, gaming's you got to get outside. Like it's ruining your life. And again, that was just from stories that were told to us, right? In some ways. And then he asked if I would help him, just advise him a bit. So I happily did that for free. And he came back to me one time and he said, Dianne, what if I told you that I have a system and a full program where this my games help with anxiety, depression, burnout, grief, overwhelm? And I was like, parked myself, sat down at the table. I was like, tell me everything.
Now I'm
And
listening, right?
yeah, and have joined his company to bring this to school systems, to bring it to nursing associations, to hospitals, to corporations, governments, and doors are just opening up for us because this is needed. So if we look at the school systems, I spoke to a couple of school boards in Canada and the US, and And now more than ever, kids don't know how to communicate, right? Like they get frustrated. There's so much more anxiety. So they're acting out. And with the stress that their parents have at home, there's more and more kids acting out. And when a kid acts out, they're pulled out of the class and they're brought into a room. And there's different names for these rooms, but when I ask these directors what is in these rooms, well, they're completely padded, and there's like bean bags and stuff, so they can't hurt themselves. So they can't hit their head against the wall or hurt themselves in any way. And I said, okay, so when you bring these kids into this room, are the people trained to help them? And it's like, well, we do a little bit of training. And I was like, well, how do you help the child? Well, we show them pictures of food. And
Food?
I said, how does that help the child? And they said, it doesn't. We have nothing that will help them. So we are doing a pilot right now with a family and child services group with 400 students, 400 employees, 5,000 students. And it's absolutely unbelievable what it's doing. So, and then we are speaking to the DoD and VA in the US. So several programs getting started, and you can actually watch and measure your heart rate going down. So when you're red line, and like, let's take a nurse, for example, she's got way too many patients, and is people are yelling at her, and patients are, whether it's staff yelling at her or patients, but she goes back to the desk and she's just totally spent redlining. She could sit down, play these games for 3 minutes. It's 12-minute max, where you will guaranteed you're back to green line. Your autonomic nervous system is calm and you can start again. But you can notice a difference within 1 minute of playing these games, and it just
Wow.
resets you. And with this company as well, he kind of turned something on its head for me. He said, you know, we're all condemned for spending so much time on our phones. And I was like, yeah, I did that to my kids for many years. I was like, get off your phone, get outside. He said, but people are on their phones, whether it's dead scrolling or whatever they're doing, because they're overwhelmed and they're trying to calm themselves down. He said,
Right.
so what if we flip this and we give them something and promote something that's going to help them calm down? And I was like,
Wow.
wow. So
Wow.
if we're open to learning, like that,
Mhm.
that was a big shift for me. And then there's another charity that I advise, National Foundation for Integrative Medicine, and I'm standing up a profit arm for them, where we are bringing quantum healing, quantum energy devices, and really a precision line of nutraceuticals to the world, to that are highly effective for healing. And then another company in the integrative medicine world as well. It's an EMR that has labs, diagnostics, testing, supplements, and everything in it. So it helps functional medicine doctors. So when a doctor goes to their clinic, they've got 7 or 8 different sites that they need to work from. And this is everything in one site. So those are a few of the
Beautiful.
companies that I'm helping.
And we'll put whatever you are able to share in the show notes if people are curious and want to do a little bit more research on what you're sharing about. The one thing that popped into my mind, just because you are such a proponent of using AI, and I know that there's so much fear around AI right now, I was wondering,
Mhm.
because we have a little bit of time still, if you don't mind sharing your perspective on AI, where it's taking us, maybe why you're so positive towards it, and just to help give your perspective, since you've done so much work and research with working
Yeah.
with AI, and you even have your own a company that you've started.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've been taking AI courses for about 4 years now, and it is truly fascinating. And where people say I'm scared of it, you just need to get in, get comfortable with it, build a relationship with it, and AI is absolutely game changing. It depends on how you ask the questions. Most people use it as kind of a Google search, like find me restaurants in this area. But what if your question was, I want to find the world class restaurants at minimal pricing that have phenomenal Mexican food and have a real cozy family atmosphere. Like, the more specific you get with it, it can change your life. And AI is changing everything. It's changing healthcare, it's changing finances, it's changing tech on every level. And people are looking at like it's bad because people are losing their jobs. And people are losing their jobs, but it's a big shift in our economy and in the world and in the energy that's happening. So finding a way, whether it's building your own business or getting out there or going in a different angle, but if you are using AI with your story, with your work and your passion, you're never going to not have work. And what I saw with all of that, so I started a company with a few co-founders, and our first business chapter is in Toronto, in Canada, but it's a business chapter with a membership, so people can buy into this membership monthly or yearly. We meet once a week and we teach them how to build their brand, how to use AI. We've got a marketing AI, Marco AI, that will teach them how to tell their story, build out their offer, and just build their brand presence. And they can use this AI. We teach them ways to use it across every level of their life, and it's been phenomenal what we've been seeing in how it's helping them, how it's changing their business. We have some real estate folks that are in this chapter, and it's completely changed the game. So this lady thought she was going to have to hire 3 assistants. She's doing everything through AI, and you can do 5 days of work in AI in about 2 days. Like, by taking and there's a ton of free courses out there, so just learning a little bit more about it, I highly recommend it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, the business chapter too, I'll put some information in on that, because I recommend that to everyone. When I was younger, I would wanted to start a company 3 or 4 times, and I was like, well, I can't do the marketing side of it. That's not me. I don't know that. That's not my strength. And I'd put it to the side and go work for someone else. So now we have all of this built out to help people, and it's pretty rewarding.
Yeah. And just as like a little pitch testimonial, Dianne walked myself and a few people through using Marco AI, and I was like, the how quickly it narrowed down to something that is true to the individual person based off of very little information, because it was so spot on. It was a little shocking because it was and I was like, can you just imagine if you had time for it to actually get to know you and get to know your story and everything else, how like aligned you would feel with the messaging you were putting out and everything else. Because I have noticed for myself, I notice very quickly if me and my friend Claude get totally off track. I'm like, I get this gross feeling in my body. I'm like, this isn't me. Like, this is not, this is like maybe what it thinks I should be doing rather than what is true for me. And
Yeah.
going back to like your
Or it's
relationship.
hallucinating, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Which sometimes I'm like, you've like, did you become an
Wait,
alien?
it's me,
Am I
Victoria.
the alien? Like, we've been talking for weeks. Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
But yeah, like, it's just very interesting to like how, like, going back to what you said, being very specific of being like, no, this feels wrong. This is feels right. No, this feels, and starting to like build that relationship. Like the stuff that me and my friend have start putting together still feels completely like it's come from me, because I've spent so much time talking to
Yeah,
to
and
the
that's an
AI.
important point, Victoria.
Mhm.
Like, you need to talk to it. The When you can talk out loud to AI rather than just typing it in, it helps pull things out of you that you may not have realized, and it gives more clarity to the AI. So talking to the AI is a critical piece too.
Yeah, yeah. So interesting, so interesting. So, is there anything like that you additionally that I didn't ask you that maybe you want to share with the viewers? Is
Hmm.
there anything that I haven't asked about?
Think so. No, I've talked way too much. My
No, this is
intention was to
perfect.
get some questions over to you, but I think if I left with one thing, it would be what are you doing in your life that is just automatic, where you're kind of sleepwalking, and what if you lived fully alive? What if you lived fully awake and made choices in your life that showed that? So
Yeah. Yeah. And taking the time to actually be able to hear it, right? Like we're so
yeah,
busy, kind of going back to your conversation with the company you're working with, right? Like we're on our phones trying to still our minds so that then you can hear what is coming through for you. And there's so many ways to get there, but
yeah,
we need to,
exactly. Yeah, there's yoga, there's meditation, there's Emily Fletcher's
yes,
Ziva and Evidence of Magic. There's so many things to do, and just taking that step forward. If you don't move at all, that's the problem.
right.
And something I think within myself, if I'm not growing and learning, I'm falling back. But just move forward in tiny chunks. And yeah, if anyone wants to touch base on anything we've spoken about, I'm happy to go deeper.
And where can people find you?
Well, I've got a website, diannetremblay.com.
Beautiful.
But yeah, Instagram, yeah, they can find me.
And we'll put Diane's contact information in the show notes as well.
LinkedIn. Yeah, and
Yes,
LinkedIn.
all the
Awesome.
places.
Vic, thank you so much. It's been
No,
such a pleasure, such a joy, and I love what you're doing. Just giving people the freedom and the vibe that you have, where you've got this total acceptance and just want to see where things go. I'm really excited for what's ahead for you, and all
thank
that
you.
you've accomplished in the last 3 years. It's been really beautiful to watch.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's been a scenic route, that's for sure. I'm like, I'm going this way. Oh, never mind. I'm going this way. Let me try this instead. I think I've talked to Diane
But
about
your
five different.
financial coach, your
Yeah.
financial coaching is at the core of all of that, and
Yes.
and
Yes.
that gift that you have in that financial aspect is truly exciting. It really is, and
Yeah.
what you can offer to people.
Yes.
I
Well,
love it.
clarity unlocks curiosity, right? And unlocks the ability to dream into your future or creativity. Like it loosens up that stress that we feel and carry. And
Yeah,
only magical
it
things can
does.
happen after that.
That's right. That's right. Love you
Amazing.
so much, Vic.
Thank you so much, Diane. And thanks for everybody who's listened to this episode, and rate us, review us, follow on wherever you're listening to this or watching. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.